Peter was 10, and his sister Jane was 8. They lived in the country, 10 kilometres from Cardiff. One day, they saw a picture of a circus in the newspaper, and Jane said to her mother, "There's going to be a circus in Cardiff next week. Please take us there." The children's mother bought tickets, and on Saturday evening, Peter and Jane and their parents went to the circus. The tent was full of people, and after a quarter of an hour, the circus began. A beautiful young girl came in. She put a cake in her mouth, and then a big lion came and took the cake out of her mouth. A man in a red coat shouted to the people, "Who's going to do the same for £100? Nobody answered. But then a funny man stood up and said, "All right, but first take the lion away." Paul Robinson liked fishing very much. In the summer, he went out fishing every evening, and in the winter, he fished on Saturdays and Sundays. His wife, Joan, did not see him very much. Then one day, last summer, Paul said to her, "I'm going to have 2 weeks' holiday this year, and we're going to go to Scotland and fish there." "And what am I going to do?" said Joan. "You're going to fish with me," Paul answered. They went to Scotland and fished there for 2 weeks. Then they came home, and Joan talked to her neighbour, Mrs. Andrews, about her fishing trip with her husband. "I did everything wrong on the trip," she said to her. "I talked loudly in the boat, and the fish were afraid. I put the wrong things on my hook. I pulled my line in very quickly, and I caught a lot more fish than Paul did."
Anne Grimes had a small car, and she drove a lot in town because she went to work by car every morning and came home by car too. And she did her shopping with her car on Saturdays. But she very seldom went out into the country in it because she did not have much time. Then, one Sunday morning last August, she said to herself, "It's a beautiful day, and it's hot in town. I'm going to drive out into the country and have a picnic in a quiet field there." She drove 20 kilometres, and then she came to a small country road. She looked at it and said to herself, "This road's very steep, isn't it?" She stopped in front of a house and asked a man, "Is this road dangerous?" "No," the man answered. "It isn't dangerous up here. They always crash down at the bottom."
Helen was 8 years old, and one day one of her teeth began hurting. She cried in her class at school, and her teacher said kindly, "Why are you crying, Helen?" "Because one of my teeth hurts," answered Helen. "Speak to your mother about it," said the teacher, "and then go and see the dentist." That afternoon, Helen spoke to her mother about her tooth, and her mother took her to the dentist a few days later. The dentist looked at the tooth, and then he said to Helen, "It's very bad. I'm going to take it out, and then you're going to get a nice new tooth next year." He pulled the tooth out. The next day, Helen's teacher asked her about the tooth. She said to her, "Does it still hurt, Helen?" "I don't know," Helen answered. "Why don't you know?" the teacher said. "Because the dentist's got it," Helen answered. Mrs. Jones wanted a picture for her living room. She took the bus and went to town. She looked for a picture shop, and after a few minutes she found one. There were some pictures in the window, but she did not like them very much. She went into the shop and looked at some other pictures. She liked some of those more. There was a picture of a young girl, and Mrs. Jones liked it very much. She went to the shopkeeper and said, "How much do you want for this picture?" The shopkeeper turned the picture round. He looked at the back of it and then said, £13. £30? Mrs. Jones said. "That's very expensive. I'm going to offer you £20 for it." I said, £13, not £30, the man answered. "13?" Mrs. Jones said. "Then I'm going to offer you £9 for it."
Mrs. Davis lived near the sea in Yarmouth and went to the same fish shop there for 25 years. She always bought beautiful, fresh fish from that shop. But then she and her husband went to London and lived there. She wrote to her friends, "I am not going to find nice, fresh fish in the London shops. They lie there for days and weeks." There was a fish shop near her house, and she went and bought her fish there for 2 or 3 weeks, but she did not like them very much. Then, last Wednesday, she went into the shop and looked at all the fish there. "These ones aren't fresh," she said to the shopkeeper. "Look at them." The shopkeeper came and looked. Then he said angrily, "That's your fault, not mine. These same fish were here in this shop last Friday, but you didn't buy them then, did you?" Mary worked in an office in London, and she usually went out and had lunch in a restaurant. She liked foreign food, and often looked in the newspaper for the names of new restaurants, because she enjoyed going to them and eating new things. Sometimes she said, "I don't like this restaurant. I'm not going to come here again." But often she said, "I like this one. I'm going to have my lunch here often." One day she saw the name of a new Greek restaurant in her newspaper, and she went there for lunch. It was very small, but it was clean and nice, and the food was good. But then Mary found something hard in her mouth. She took it out. It was a button. "Look here, waiter," she said. "I found this button in my food." Thank you," the waiter answered happily. "I looked everywhere for it." Edward was at school. He was 16, and he lived with his mother and father near London. Then he left school and worked in a factory for a year. And then, in August, he said to his parents, "I'm going to have a nice holiday in the country now, and I'm going to go there alone." He did not have much money, but he found the name of a small, cheap hotel, and he went there by train and bus. His room in the hotel was very small, but it was clean, and Edward was happy, because he was alone. The first evening, he went down to the dining room of the hotel at dinner time and sat down at a small table. The young waitress brought him a plate, and Edward looked at it. Then he said to the girl, "Waitress, This plate's wet. That's your soup, the girl answered.